Give me 1 second. And what I do is I broadcast this on the page here so everybody can see it and start firing some questions at you and me and everybody else and whoever joins us. And just kind of get to Jay Cruiz's story, man. That's what everybody wants to really know. Nobody wants to talk about me. They all want to talk about Jay. How is Jay blowing up press cable right now? Because that's the coolest thing going on the plane. That's what I hear anyway. So we're live right now, brother, man. Guys, we got Jay Cruiz on. Jay's coming from the UK. Represent. Let's go, Jay Cray.
So that Wes, I'm going to do some. No.
No, he's not.
That's not what.
So, guys, Jay Cruiz is a master at promotion. He's out there on the internet. Some of you guys maybe actually have seen him. You got some pretty cool videos, by the way, Jay. I really like them. Seriously, they're very entertaining. I'm always like watching your stuff. So I love what you do there. And Jay actually helps run Press Cable. So for those of you guys who don't know, Press Cable is a beast online. It helps basically get more traction out there in the PR space. So you see, Jay's all about getting you in front of like ABC News and NBC, and there's like some 300 side syndicates that you guys get everybody's attention out to. So if you're wanting to get some mass media attention, you're just a few clicks away with using Press Cable. And Jay, first of all, man, I want to thank you for coming on today and kind of sharing some of your golden nuggets. And we're going to get to your story here in a second. And just welcome aboard, man. That's a lot for me. I just brain dumped.
No. Hey, it's great to be here. It's great to be here. I'm. We met when in Cuba? Was it?
Yeah, man. It was. I think we were in the South Shores of Cuba there at the bar that night, and it was funny because we were sitting across from each other, and it was kind of funny. We weren't even talking about what we were doing, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, like what do you do? And I told you, and you're like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And I was like, yeah, I was like, what space do you know? Internet marketing space. Oh, okay. Well, you probably know Greg, and you probably know Matt, and you probably know this person, that person, yada, yada. And it was funny. Like everybody who wasn't on the trip, we had like mutual friends with. It was like going through our Facebook, which was one of the coolest things about going to Cuba right now is nobody's doing this right now. Nobody's like doing this, right? So everybody was actually old face-to-face conversations, kind of like we're doing here. And it's the real truth, hashtag, right? Real truth. So we got a chance to know each other there at the restaurant, and it was like we had all these mutual friends, and then became friends after that. And you've been flying around the country, flying around the world, masterminding and talking with people and kind of developing what you're doing with Press Cable. So I definitely look forward to learning more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're right. For anybody who hasn't been to Cuba yet, and I suspect that's a vast majority of our audience because of the barriers to entry and stuff. You're right. In our world, or in our worlds, if you like, our countries and wherever we reside, mostly it is like that. That's how we experience the world, right?
Yeah.
And in Cuba, it was just beautiful. It was like there was hardly any internet connection anyway. So this was just put into one side, and we just, took it all in, like you said, with the real truth. I loved it. It was one of my favorite trips. And yeah, it was great to meet you out there. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to what you've got in store. So hit me up.
My biggest question for you right off the bat is, when's the first kind of entrepreneur experience you've had? A lot of this is around mindset, and that's what I'm really known for, is helping people with the money mindset side of it. We call it the Money Mindset Master, thanks to my boy Keith over here. Brian Keith Noonan. Do you know Brian by any chance?
I think I'm familiar with the name. I don't think we've met.
So he's a beast. Sure. I'll introduce you to him. And so Brian and I were talking yesterday, and it's all around the mindset side. And it's important to understand where that mindset actually comes from, because oftentimes people are either beating themselves up and they can't figure out why they can't achieve something, or, why they haven't, gone into the entrepreneur route and to start with, or how do we even start a business? And it's almost like they're looking for permission from somewhere. So it's always good to kind of hear your story on how you started as an entrepreneur, because I know it's going to give somebody else permission out there that they can go out and do what you've done. And I know it hasn't all been easy too. I mean, everybody takes their licks on the chops. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is my entrepreneurial journey was, it was developed, I'd say, at a very young age, because I think I was around the age of maybe 5 or 6, and I immediately understood, right? People used to, like in my family home, I'm originally Indian, I was born in the UK. My families were immigrants coming from India in the 70s. And then, people started coming over, and friends, family started, we started developing links in the local town near London. And what happened is when I was, age 5, 6, my mother's friends used to come over in like little gatherings, right? Just come over, and after every time they came over, before they left, depending on how much I engaged with them emotionally, made them laugh, they used to give me gifts, money, sweets, whatever, candy. And I quickly learned, the more I can engage with them emotionally, the more I can understand, what they want, how entertaining I can be, and how I can, really connect with them, the more I was rewarded. And I thought, hold on a second, it really clicked for me early that emotionally, or having emotional intelligence leads to, and yes, I wasn't selling anything per se, but I'd argue I was, like I wasn't selling anything for money, but I was trading what I had, a gift or an insight, in return for what they were giving me, which was gifts, candy, money, whatever it might be. So I created that link very early. And I think, growing up, I realized that that's what it's about. It's persuasion is everything. Persuasion is selling, right?
So when's the first time as a young child? A lot of times I've seen with individuals, what you're sharing is there was that early memory of you became the funny kid, right? And you became the way to kind of diffuse situations with humor. I know a lot of other people that are like that as well. When's the first time you remember doing something like that?
So I remember, my father came home from work one day, and bearing in mind, like I'm brushing over it. I'm saying 70s, immigrants from India. It was tough, man. I'm talking, facing all manner of issues, struggles, and obstacles.
So tell us about that specifically, because we live in America where, people on the poverty line here have cell phone packages that are given to them, and they have rent that's paid for them and all this stuff. And it's not to say that some of those aren't warranted, but like, let us in on the outside world. What is tough coming from somebody who's from India, where it's something I've got a chance to experience, spending time overseas in the military and stuff, and I've seen firsthand. And I was just kind of was really blown away, and I was really taken back of life's not about, Lamborghinis, Lambo world, right? And all this other crap that's out there. It's not to say they're not fun, but at the same time, tell us what was tough in your eyes.
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing that I learned and I saw with my own eyes was, parents didn't have time to connect with me and my brother. Now, I know that sounds, really extreme. Of course, they loved us. We had a loving childhood, loving parents and all that, but there was no time. Time was money, and they understood this, right? And so I'm talking my parents, my father had 2 jobs. My mother had 3 jobs, right? So I used to go to a job in the morning, to get me ready for school, out. Go to a job, come back for literally 20 minutes, feed me, out the door, come back in the evening. So, their understanding was, listen, we've got 2 things. We've got to look after the children and raise them, but having to do that in, paying rent and all the things that come along with raising a family. But if you consider having to do that, and imagine having to do that when you don't understand the language very well, okay, you're struggling with that. So there's a language barrier, but also culturally, back in the 70s, there was a lot of obstacles. I'm talking about, prejudice. I'm talking about, all things on the table here, elements of, racial issues and things like this really coming to the fore. Because if you imagine these English people, I'd see an influx, and it's happening around the world even now. Back then, it was a little bit more different because you didn't have social media. There was no understanding of what's going on. So it's very strange for the English culture to be sort of taken aback by this new wave of Indian families coming over. So jobs weren't, easy to get when they were. So, for my father and my mother, when they got a job, that was it. That was everything. And if they lost that job, it was going to be tough. And bearing in mind, they're sending money back to India as well to pay for and keep the family there, happy, surviving, and earning cash as well. So it was twofold. I think that, so anyway, answering your question, the biggest thing was being able to connect with them. You talk about going to the park and having picnics and all this lovely vacations. Nope. There was no such thing. It was about, listen, we've got to feed these kids. And that was the priority for them. So that was one of the biggest challenges, I'd say, for sure.
So you basically figured out how to, and thank you for sharing, Jay. So you figured out how to bring humor to a family who at that point, it was a way to kind of diffuse the situation with your family and your dad and stuff like that, and was able to build, really form a connection.
Absolutely. It was about, bringing the family together and getting their mind off the struggles we were facing. It wasn't about, will we have enough next month to pay for everything? Because this, when I say this kid, I mean either me or my brother, right? Just kind of like they're thinking either Jay or Harvey is what my brother's called. Harvey's got uni coming up. He's got college. You call it university in the UK. Jay is going to have a trip next month, which he needs to go to. Everything needs to be financed. So every month, right, there's struggles and there's a lot of a lot of baggage and a lot of things to think about. And I used to just think, you know what, let's just forget about it. Let's live for the moment, and run around and make people feel happy and just get them together, So, and I realized that did, distracted them, but it also opened them up to think, you know what, you're right. We live in the here and now. And I learned that lesson when I was very, very young, because they were constantly going on about bills, what's going to happen next year, tomorrow, next month. And I'm like, hold on a second. When you really tap into the here and now, and I know you talk about a lot of this stuff, Daryl, your perspective almost instantly changes. It's crazy, and if you can do that for other people, then it creates a very positive and insightful sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
How have you taken that experience and what you experienced as a young child, and now you've taken out and intertwined it with what you do in business? And do you realize like what you're doing right now is you're really just bringing that to the marketplace?
Absolutely. Like I do a lot of training, webinars. We were just in the US recently. We went to Traffic and Conversions.
Yeah.
We had a booth there, right? And we had a booth there. And we've done a few booths now. We've got one on Friday in Brighton, just in the UK. But the point is, at these things, what am I doing?
Entertaining.
Same thing, right? Putting a smile on people's faces.
Except now they're paying you for it.
It's like, give me that gas. Give me that gas. No, it's you're absolutely right. It's like, they come and you learn, hold on, these people have struggles. These people have issues. They've got rents to pay. They've got children to raise. They've got problems, they might have had when they were kids that are affecting them. Business may not be good. And I'm like, forget all that. Let's connect as human beings here. Let's live in the here and now. And it's funny because that's what we do at the booth. They come, it's part of the magic. They come over and we create a vibe where it's like, look, forget about business. What do you do? What's going on? How's the show going? It's small little things like that. But eventually people drop their guard slowly. And then they go, you know what? I feel good here. I like this. You're not selling to me. And, we're talking about life. I feel present. Then they say, what do you do? What are you selling or what do you have? And they're like, oh, well, okay. I've got, and then you go into it. And it almost, and all I'm talking about, by the way, is rapport in sales, right?
Sure.
But it's just looking at it from a completely different perspective and coming at it from a different angle. But that's all you're doing. You're empathizing and you're connecting with people. And I mean, Daryl, it's funny because when we met, it was a similar thing. I mean, by the time we actually started talking about what you do, what I do, it'd been 2 days. We'd connected, we'd been walking, on beaches and checking out, experiencing the beauty of Cuba with these real people that are struggling. And, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, forget business. Let's just connect as human beings first. And with networking as well, that's paid huge dividend, I'd say. Which leads on to striking deals and, of course.
And I have to go out and thank John Souza again for setting up that whole trip, and Paul for bringing everybody together. And
absolutely.
Done. I'm just amazing people will attract amazing people. That's really what it comes down to. So that was a great experience, one that I have for the books. And it wasn't, I mean, going to Cuba was kind of cool. I mean, that was cool in itself, but I don't care if we went to like Nebraska. I mean, we could have not had fun with that group of people.
Exactly. No, completely. No, definitely. And this is what I'm saying.
Not against Nebraska, but we could have been doing it,
Well, maybe, yeah. I think people on the call who are watching now might be thinking, Nebraska, okay. I mean, we could push to like, I don't know, maybe, New York or something. But no. But it's, no, the funny thing is I've never been to Nebraska, so I can't speak. But no, you're right. It was, again, connecting humans together. And that was, for all of us, that was a priority. And there's no surprise there were such successful people there. And you can see why. Because, yes, they're doing well. Yes, they're making a lot of money and they're pushing their businesses, innovating. But more than anything, they just want to connect with cool people, like-minded, and share experiences, Really,
absolutely.
I enjoyed that. So, yeah.
What is the way you're able to connect people now with, places like ABC News and and PBS and Fox News and like all these different places. You get people all over the internet, like in a really fast amount of time. How do you do that? Like, what's your secret magic behind getting people out there to mass media like that?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because I just realized I'm holding a Disney princess pencil. It's my niece's. And I've been waving this around all this time. I'm like, okay, let me grab a more appropriate.
My daughter's. Did she leave that over there?
It flew over. Technology these days, Daryl.
Technology, it throws stuff back.
Yeah. It came off the table. So I'll hold a more appropriate. If you like. No, it's funny you say that because in all seriousness, you know, I learned from my father, again, going back to my childhood, that it's about the underdog, right? I loved this idea of, you know, going to school, growing up, looking at my parents, seeing what they were doing and realizing that, you know, the people who don't have the best start, if you like, in life, you know, they're not fed with a silver spoon. They don't get given a car at 16, you know, sweet 16 and all this stuff. And growing up, even asking, I remember, you know, even asking for £10, which is around 20, you know, less than $20 from my parents. When I'd want to go out with my friends once a month, I would circle his room, right? Or pace up and down outside his room, and just, you know, go around the house, walk around. And he used to open the door and go, "What are you doing here?" And I'd been walking around for 20 minutes just to build up the courage to ask him for £10, right? That's what I'm saying. So, you know, it gave me an understanding that, hold on, we are the underdogs. You know, my family have come over. They're the underdog. Like, they have to fight for everything, right? Blood, sweat, tears, just to get a little bit of a foundation. And I realized as I grew up that it wasn't even for them. It was for me and my brother, right? Which is an amazing sacrifice. But that's exactly what we're doing right now. With local businesses is our, you know, one of our biggest end users. You know, we provide the ability for agencies who already sell to local businesses, like web design. You know, it could be sort of helping businesses get more visibility, reputation, whatever it might be. And we give them the means, or provide the means for these local businesses to get visibility online and drive sales. You know, and I'm talking about really powerful results. There was, you know, recently and it's fun. I mean, so imagine I came home, I walked into my house one day and my aunt was there, right? My auntie. She was there, and it was particularly, you know, it was a moving moment for me because she normally, and I'm talking, you know, she was struggling with debilitating arthritis for a long time, and she couldn't move. She was bedridden, really struggling. And if you imagine somebody you love, somebody you really care about, sibling, a parent, it could be a child, it doesn't matter, being in debilitating pain and you not being able to do anything to help them, it destroys you, right? And yet here she was moving around with freedom. And I said, "Aunt, what's going on? Like, wow, like, don't get me wrong, I'm super happy to see you. How did you?" And she said, "Oh, well, Jay, you know, I've been seeing this physio." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Well, and he's helped me, you know, a lot." And I went, "Well, I can see that." So I picked the phone up. I called them, and the guy's name was Cam. I said, "Cam, first of all, thank you so much for what you've done for my aunt, right? Gratitude, like eternal gratitude." And then, can anybody guess, as a, you know, as the righteous thing I should do, or I should have done as an entrepreneur, any self-respecting entrepreneur would have done the same thing. I checked whether they were online, whether they were visible. And they were. Right? That's a travesty. Here's a business who's changing people's lives. Right? And I'm talking like changing their lives, getting her to move around. And he's obviously doing this for a lot of people. And he's not visible. I said, "No way, we have to change this." So I went there, we had a chat. And after working with them, it was worth around, I think, an added revenue number of around just under $500,000 a year added to their.
Just a few pounds.
It's like, yeah. So, you know, things are changing for us. Thanks, Jay. We've made £2 extra. Just a few.
Yeah, you might get out of bed for £500,000.
Oh man, but they were the underdog, and I knew how they felt. You know, when I spoke to him, I could hear the same patterns, if you like, that I heard in my own father, which is struggling to make things happen, really pushing hard, having something which is true and real, and providing good or rendering good service for the local community. You need to be on Google. You need to have more customers because you deserve it. And yet here's these big corporations who are just with deep pockets, you know, just taking over. No, it's about empowering the underdog. And I learned that.
Same conversation you had you burn a hole in the carpet at your house, you know, there at the age of, how old were you then where you were doing stuff like that?
Well, like 5 or 6 or something.
Five or six, you know, you expedited that process now 20 years later. And here you are having those same types of conversations with business owners, but you're just going in there and you're helping them like right away. So
yeah. So it's been
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So you see how that kind of links in together now, and how you've taken the stuff, what you learned, from a child. Now, Jay, who gave you permission to go out and have conversations with business owners that are out there? I mean, like, who gave you authority? Like, oh, I'm going to go out and help a business around that. Like, where did that idea even come up for with Press Cable? I know you're working with Chris, so I mean, you guys are working together. So how did you guys come up with a concept? I'm like, hey, this is an idea we had, to let's take this out into fruition.
Yeah, no, sure. So Chris had actually started the company already. Like, I joined 6 months in, and we actually met on the island of Fuerteventura. And before this, I was struggling. Like, you wouldn't believe. I'm talking about. I tried to start up like 15 businesses up until this point, and every single one of them, well, apart from one, but that just ended because my partner, something happened to him. But I'll talk about that later. Anyway, 15 businesses later, and literally I was on my last bit of cash. And my good friend Joey Zotto, many people here may know, one of my best friends. We grew up together. He's doing some really big stuff in the video space now and animation. We jumped on a plane, right? And we went over to Fuerteventura, and that's where I met Chris. And Chris he had created this system, which was step by step. He was helping a lot of people already. And when I spoke to him, he was like, look, it was clear. He just set me the challenge. He said, look, Jay, I'd love to work together. And this is Chris Munch. He was a legend back then as well in the iron space. And he was speaking at the event and stuff. Anyway, he set me the challenge to go out there. He said, listen, I meet a lot of young people who have got a lot of drive, a lot of passion. But if you want to partner with me, right, then this is what it takes. Challenge me. And I went out there. And, I went out there, spoke to businesses, created an agency out of scratch, started billing customers. So that's how we got started. And now, obviously, we're partnered in the business. But back then, it was just when I was starting out. And it's interesting you talk about permission, right? Because even then, who gave me the permission to go to Fuerteventura, to speak to these marketing geniuses at this event, or marketing, thought leaders? And who gave me the permission even before that to start up these businesses that I had tried? And, it's interesting. I'll tell you why, because think about it. Everything I've said when it comes to my parents and how I've grown up has been very safe in terms of everything you do needs to be safe. You can't risk losing your job, Jay, because the system is like this. And that's how my parents brought me up. They were like, every penny counts. You don't take risks. You just play by the system, get an education, and you set your family up. And the funny thing is, my brother is also an entrepreneur. He has his own business, and he's doing really well with that. But what gave me permission is when he stepped out, and he said, you know what, I'm going to fight the status quo here, and I'm going to set up my own business, right? And before that, we've both been entrepreneurial. And I think the biggest reason is we're like, look, here's our parents who have raised us immaculately in terms of values, principles, and all this, but they're fearful. Saw the fear in their eyes to step up, to step up in society and actually change their own world, right? So what gave me permission was when I looked into those eyes and I said, you know what? They deserve to have everything they want in life, everything. And I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to go out there, do whatever it takes, and I'm going to deliver it for them. One day it's going to happen, no matter how long it takes. So what gave me permission was they gave me this foundation. And if I don't push past that, accelerate that, I don't take that further, then I'm doing myself and my family an injustice, because they worked so hard to give me the education, give me the fact that I'm in the UK and I was born here. I don't take that for granted. So the permission was like, hey, this is nothing. Look what they went through. I have to do this. I've got no choice. So.
Absolutely, man. Congratulations. And I know that you worked really hard in helping your family, and that's a huge driver for you. And obviously that speaks to the values and who you are as a person. And for those people out there that I know that they see the end result of where you're at now, but I know there was a struggle. Like, you had 15 beautiful learning experiences that you took away from that, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
How many of those learning experiences, right, over the way have you put back into use because you learned the lesson then, so you don't have to actually repeat it?
You know what? Every single one. And the learning is just, I always say, you put it really eloquently there. It's learning experiences. For me back then, like at the time, they are failures. Make no mistake. You're not philosophical at the time. You're not. You're just simply not. You're there. You're down and out. I remember there was one business I had, in particular, where I'd started up an events company. Okay. And this was moving on from, so I went to university, college in Manchester, which is just north of England. And in Manchester, I set up a business with a couple of partners, and there was a mentor we had who was leading the way, created this team. And he created, we were basically doing college nights. We were putting on really cool events, putting on tickets. We got known for doing this. It went really well, making good money. And then my partner was diagnosed with cancer. And my mentor at the time, he passed away within a year. It was just, right? So that was crazy. And then I had no guidance. He looked after most things. Yes, we were partners, but I didn't, there was a lot I was learning. So that didn't work out. So I tried to replicate that in London when I moved back here. And oh my God, like I said, it's a case of, I thought this is easy. We had success there. We can do the same thing here, right? I felt invincible. So we did that, set up an event. Nobody showed up. And I'm talking, we had laid down thousands of dollars to put this event on, had DJs, had performers and all sorts, and had agreement with the venue. No one turned up. So then I thought, right, I'm not going to give up. Borrowed money off all manner of people, friends, family, tens of thousands of dollars. I thought if I just do this one more event, just this one more event, things are going to change. I'll pay them off. It'll be fine. Nobody turned up again and again and again. And this is just one business, right? Out of the 15. But it got to a point where I remember I was in a subway in London, and I was on a bench. And although I was surrounded by, hundreds of people, I'd literally just got the phone call before getting in there that my cousin, who was 36 years old, and I'm very, very close with, had just passed away.
Wow.
So imagine all this debt, fail. And then I just couldn't take it anymore. It just felt like, it was the last straw, literally. And I just sat on the subway, on the bench, just crying my eyes out, just wept. Like everything just finally, if you imagine a time when you've had this where you just feel like everything just comes out of you, right? Poured out. And people were just carrying on with their lives, hundreds of them. And although I was there, I felt completely alone. No one believed in me. No one thought I would amount to anything. They're like, yeah, he's got a bit of talent. He can talk, he can do this, but nah. So yeah, the failure then just taught me, again, is permission, right? It gave myself permission to, okay, well, let's not be down for too long. Let's figure out what went wrong. Let's learn from this. I did that, applied it, and used the last few pounds. Incidentally, this leads on to me going to Fuerteventura. And I used that money to then fly there. I dusted myself off and went, right. Because it's mini courses, isn't it? It's like a mini course.
When you made that decision to fly to see Cruiz, how much money did you actually have left in your bank account at that point?
Like minus 3,000, I think.
I love it.
Yeah. No, that was just the account. And I owed like about, so many other people money. But
how much money did you owe at the time? You're like, screw it. Just let's one last.
Yeah, I was like, 10, 15, 20 in, man. It was horrible.
Those pounds or dollars?
Pounds.
Pounds. There's more than dollars.
Way more than dollars. Way more than dollars. And I thought, hey, what's three grand more, right? So I had to, I was like, let's just do it, And yeah, you go through the times when you're like, well, I've done all this and still failed. What makes me think I'm going to go out there and make this happen? You have these thoughts. And that's why I say at the time, when I was on that bench, I didn't have this epiphany. I think I'm mentally going to do this and that. No. I just thought, screw everything. I don't want to do this anymore, right? But then the next day, you wipe yourself off. You wipe your tears. You wipe the dust off your shoulder, the dirt off the shoulder, like Jay-Z said. And then you get up and you're ready to fight again. And you're like, you know what? Let's do this. I can do this all day. If I'm going to be successful and someone tell me you got to live Groundhog Day every day, I'll do it. If it's going to mean getting there, I will do it, And that's how I felt. So I was like, I'm going to make this happen one day or another, one way. I don't care if I keep getting into debt because I will pay this off. And that was always the mentality.
What's your drive today I know all the debt's been paid off and all that stuff at this point, you've moved way past that, but what's still your internal drive today that gets you up every day and you're like wanting to give it your all?
Yeah. So it's empowering the underdog. And the funny thing is that's one of our slogans for Press Cable that we came up with. And that's powerful, right? Because it's not just about, the underdog could be anybody, by the way. We're helping e-commerce businesses as well now, because we've really dialed in the local side. Now we're helping e-com guys who are struggling with sales or whatever. But the underdog could be anybody, somebody who can take something that we have and learn from it and apply it. And it could be, again, it links to my family too, because they've always been the underdog, helping them, securing their future and continuing to do that. But I think just watching businesses. There's something about watching businesses who deserve it, right? Not just anybody. And I'm not talking about selling services just for the sake of it. No. There's something about when you help a business who have been struggling, who are true to what they do, have values, principles, and just watch them turn their fortunes around. You know, it's super powerful, and it's something that drives me every day. And that's why I'm like, you know, we need to get the word out. We need to get the word out there. You know, we're building teams and sales, this, that, and the other, and everything is driven towards that one objective. And just to scale it out, help more businesses. So that's what drives me.
What's the best way for people to learn more about Press Cable, and what do you feel is the biggest benefits for using Press Cable?
Yeah, sure. So you can learn more on, you can visit our website, presscable.com. So you can check us out. And the biggest benefit, I'd say, is what we do is it's a completely new approach. You know, I don't know of any other press release company doing what we're doing in the way we're doing it to deliver the results we're delivering, right? And all that means in layman's terms is nobody's...
You can describe a press release, Jay, just so possibly somebody's new to this, they haven't heard about it before.
Yeah.
You can just describe what a press release is for a business so they can get a better understanding.
Of course. So many people here may have heard of PR Web, perhaps. PR Web is a big press release distribution company. They do really well. You know, we have a bigger distribution than they have now. So distribution, basically all it comes down to is the amount of sites that your piece of content is being distributed to. And we get content distributed to hundreds of sites, 200 guaranteed. We're talking sites like CNN, Fox News, ABC, and the like. And the reason this is powerful is because it gets you, you know, it leverages authority of these sites. So the content is real, it's newsworthy, and you're being associated with sites for good reason, right? Because you've got something to put out there. And we've seen a really powerful impact of this to local businesses or anybody who's got a website. You know, whether you're pushing affiliate sales, you might be doing. It doesn't really matter. You know, if you're online and you're trying to drive traffic or you're trying to get develop authority, this is a really powerful way to do that. Because our software, we spent a lot of time doing this and a lot of money. It allows you now to fill in a form which is intuitive. You hit publish and boom. You know, imagine in that one instant, your piece of content is now leveraging hundreds of authority sites. So that's what that press release does. It gets distributed, and we create it as well. And now we've got an automated service, a done-for-you service as well, where we've got writers who are just super trained to do exactly this. They're trained to write them and get them out there and get the most impact for what people are doing out there.
That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, appreciate it. Any last rounds you would say, or you'd like to share with somebody who's out there who is possibly struggling on their own, where they're not sure what to do, or they just, if it was one golden nugget you could say to somebody who's sitting there on the bench like you were that day, what's the conversation you'd have with that person?
Well, I would just say, look, we get asked this all the time, and I'd say the most powerful thing that I've understood and learned. I mean, I think it comes from the movie. If you see, you strike me as a Rocky guy, Daryl.
Oh yeah,
Rocky. Oh yeah, and you'll know what I'm about to refer to is in one of the movies. Rocky talks about how it's a great quote. How he's talking to his son, and his son's really struggling and complaining. His son's like, "Yeah, I haven't got a job because of this, or this isn't working because of that." And Rocky's like, "Listen, mate, what are you talking about?" Because life isn't about how many hits or anything other than how many hits you
can take. It's about whether you get back up.
Yes. It's not about whether you get knocked down. It's about how many times you can get back up and keep on fighting. Get back up and keep on fighting. And he loves it. He loves it. Daryl loves it. But it's true, because life, like you mentioned at the beginning, poof, it's going to punch you.
Cold, dark place.
It's going to pick you up and throw you down again and again and again and again. And what I would say to that person is that's going to happen. Expect that. But the reason you should go through all of that, because it is painful, right? No one likes to be knocked down, thrown to the floor, punched in the face constantly. It's not nice. The reason why it's worth it is because we live one life. That's all we have. We have one life. Many of us may be halfway, quarter of a way, maybe a little bit more through it, but we've got one life. Just think about that, right? We owe it to ourselves to live and to be at a level that we can create for ourselves. For me, it makes no sense to push past barriers or not to push past barriers and create a life for ourselves that we deserve. Because let me tell you, once it's over, it's over. Just think about that, right? So get out there, do whatever you need to do, because one day there's going to be nothing. Think about it. You've got your chance. Enjoy your life. Get up there and make the most of it.
You got one day. You got one day to live.
There you go.
You got today. And if you're breathing today, it's a great day to be alive. Because a lot of people died yesterday that aren't here today. A lot of people that came down with cancer, like your friend, and died within a year.
Exactly.
There's people that pass away every day. And from what I've seen out there, I mean, I've had a lot of military buddies. I mean, today could be your last day.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, Daryl. I mean, I know you've experienced a lot of that, and I think ultimately, if you really think about it, we come down to the fact that the Earth, the Sun, the Moon, our very galaxy, solar system, it's all going to finish one day, like millions of years from now, whatever. But the point is, there's going to be a point where no one will remember who we were, what we did, or how we lived. So who cares if you fail? Who cares if you have a princess's pencil and you're showing the whole world? Who cares if, and this happens to be, no, but seriously, who cares if you trip up and you fall and you look silly? Just get back up. No one cares.
What would Rocky do?
Exactly. Come out fighting, right?
Come out fighting. There's a great quote, actually. It was a little story I read about. I didn't realize, he got turned down. Somebody wanted to buy the script off of him. He created Rocky 1 for he got paid $15,000 to do that.
Yeah. But he refused to give the script up, right?
Yeah.
Because they kept saying no and rejecting him.
Yeah, because he wanted to play the part.
Exactly. And he was like, no, sorry, dude.
So play the part in your movie, huh? Be your own Jay Cruiz today. Today is your day to be Jay Cruiz. Go up to the best person you could actually be. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, and a quote. You know what? I love it. I'm excited. I'm
going to go fight something outside. Come over and let's fight outside, right?
Daryl, I would never fight with you because you're far too strong and big and you have a military background. So not happening. But no, you know what? It's actually reminded me. You're getting me excited now. You're getting all the juices flowing. Creative juices. I have to specify, but creative juices. About how they were alive, man. They're going to become... No, but anyway. No, seriously. There was a quote that I used to use a lot because I did a lot of confidence training and stuff like this for other people many years ago. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. But one of the lines I came up with, and I think it's fitting now, is don't sit back and let the world happen to you. Go out there and happen to the world.
Woo! Yeah, Jay. And that, my friends, is a wrap. See you guys. Jay Cruiz signing out. UK out.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Been an absolute pleasure now.